Welcome to another episode of the Wealth Building Strategies Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Constantino. Today, I am super honored to have on as a guest the legend himself, Tom Grossman. Welcome, Tom.
Hey man, thanks for having me, Jeremy. The legend. I don't know if I've ever been introduced like that, but it sounds cool.
A little bit of humility, but it's an honor to have you on as a guest because we've been close friends, and you probably are the closest friend that I've had in my entire life. We've been friends for 27 years, and we've gone through a lot of journey together. We played high school sports together. We both went to the University of Oklahoma and played collegiate athletics there. You're a wrestler at the University of Oklahoma and played baseball. Then even after university, we had a lot of religious journey together as well. You and I are both godparents to our one of our sons. You're a godparent of my son, and I'm a godparent of one of your sons. And now, what is so exciting is that you have found a passion and a journey now in real estate investing, specifically in the commercial real estate land development. And so, thus, the reason why you are now a guest on this podcast.
Yeah, that's if you would have told me 5, 10 years ago that I would be on a real estate podcast, I would have probably laughed at you. But here I am.
It's interesting because the circumstances are pretty wild. We went on a family vacation together to Florida over towards the end of summer, and you just brought up a topic of possibly partnering together in commercial real estate, and my jaw dropped because I just I didn't know that you were having such success in land development. And when you told me about some of these possibilities, I said, absolutely, let's partner together on some of these. But getting ahead of myself here. So I guess how did you get into real estate?
Well, so I actually worked in the Diocese of Dallas for about 10 years for the Catholic Church. And you'd been kind of moving around the country in oil, and you actually moved to the same town in Richardson. And I remember uh, our thought was always, we were like involved in ministry together, and we were like, well, why don't we someday, it'd be cool if we got some acreage and we moved out and we, established this community. And so at the time when you guys came to Richardson, I think you and Amelia were like ready to go. You were like, let's do this. And I remember Renee was just like, no, that Renee's my wife. She's like, no, this isn't going to happen right now. I don't think so. And so it kind of got put on the shelf. Well, then I think you kind of got plugged into the community, plugged into a parish there, and Renee and I were kind of on our way out, and so we started looking at some land in Oklahoma, and so we we purchased this property, and I just remember going out to it, and it looked really good, and I was like, man, this is a place that I could really like. I could live here. This would be a beautiful place. So we purchased that. It was 36 acres. And at the same time, one of my friends was like, hey, you ought to check out my father-in-law's land in Arkansas. There's 55 acres there where they're trying to establish this retreat center. And that's really what we wanted to do. We wanted to go out to some land and establish a retreat center for families. So the 55-acre deal in Arkansas wound up being kind of a better fit for our family. So we moved to Arkansas. And meanwhile, we had this property here in Oklahoma that we weren't really doing much with. And so in the course of ministry, like I had a kind of a solid job for, 10 years. And then we kind of stepped out to where there wasn't anything really solid. And so, I got a job in construction. And then I found myself in a situation where it was like, to provide for the family is like that job kind of came to an end, and I was like, man, we need to do something. And so Renee was like, you know what, I think we need to sell that land in Oklahoma. And so I kind of had this option at that point to sell the 36-acre tract altogether. And I started looking at the prices, and I was like, oh, okay, we can make a little bit of money off of our investment. But what I did was I started looking at the smaller acreages, like the 5 to 8 acre range. And what I noticed was, man, the 5 to 8 acres brings in more money than the 36 to 40 acres. So I was like, I'm going to see about getting a surveyor out to kind of replat this and and kind of just do a little mini subdivision. So we did that. We split it into like 4 tracts, and I sold the first 2 of those tracts. And Renee and I were super excited. I think we made like $5,000 to $6,000 an acre, and we were like, "Wow, this is great! You know, we're doing way better than we thought." And it caused me to kind of look at it a little bit deeper, and I noticed, man, the 2 to 3 acre tracts are doing even better than the 5 to 8 acre tracts. And so one of the neighbors there, right when I made this decision to go to smaller acreage, he was like, he made me an offer on 8 acres on one of the tracts, and it was a pretty good offer. But I told him, I said, no, I said, I've just decided to subdivide these into 2 acres. And I remember him telling me, he's like, no one's going to want to buy 2 acre tracts out here in the middle of nowhere. And I don't know why, but those words just really stuck out. I was like, huh, interesting, you know. But sure enough, when I cut those tracts down to 2 to 3 acres, the demand for the tracts actually went up. And not only that, people were open to paying for 2 to 3 of them at a time. I mean, I think I sold to 3 people that bought 2 to 3 tracts at a time, and they were willing to pay the premium for it. They were willing to pay the 2 acre tract price on the total amount. So this was awesome. So finally I had the last tract, which was, it was a really pretty place. It was up on the top of the mountain, had a pond. And that last tract I sold for $20,000 an acre. And
Wow.
ironically, the person that bought that tract was actually an investor that didn't even step foot on the land.
Wow.
They were just buying it as a real estate holding. So
Wow.
so that was really cool because the property itself was beautiful. I mean, it was like one of those spots you were like, you could see everything around, and just a beautiful view. So that was kind of the cool thing. So we had purchased this land for about 1750 an acre, and the last sale there, it was going for about $20,000 an acre. And this was over the course of about 2 years that it took to sell the 36 acres. So
Wow, that's incredible. We on this show we hear a lot of success stories in commercial real estate, multifamily, office, retail, industrial, and there's a lot of success stories of the investors making two, three, four times their investment. However, I've yet to stumble across any of those type of investor and type of those asset classes that yield a 10x or even larger, like yours, in going from $1,700 an acre up to $20,000 an acre, and that's the attractiveness of land development projects, because there's a tremendous amount of upside if you got to learn what you're doing. And it's and I don't say it's provident, it's a little bit of providence, but you are also very familiar with the area because you're living out in that region. You're in 55 acres, so the area as well, and that plays a part. But then you also had to learn how to replat it and subdivide it. So I guess can you give a little insight of to what the process entails into subdividing land in that region?
yeah, so one of the things that I noticed, because when I decided, okay, like, this might not just be a hobby anymore. Maybe this is something that I should start to like really do, because it it provides a lot of flexibility. I can work from home. I can do multiple projects at a time. But after this success, Renee was like, she was like, man, maybe you should do that. Maybe we should get another project, and you should do this. And And I was kind of like, at the time, I was like, yeah, I had the sawmill business and I was like trying to get that going. And I was like, I don't know. But Renee has a sense as a good wife of, man, she always like really spurs me on to greatness. So when she says something, a lot of times it's like right on, and she was right on with it. And so like what we found is this is a really good fit for our family. But the strategy, really for us, and when I go to look at a piece of land, there's a couple things that come into play. Is it beautiful? Is it kind of, does it give you that feel where you're out from the city? Because nobody wants to buy acreage where they feel like, oh, I'm right next to an industrial plant, or there's a chicken house right here next to me. It doesn't give you that, like, I'm out in the country feel. So the overall look, and what I've come to be able to do is I can look beyond the trees. I can look at the potential places to clear, to set up vision for people when they come in. Where are the potential roads to bring in electricity? So all of these things are factors. You have drainage, like, oh man, there's a valley here. This is going to need culverts if we do a road. And so it's cutting up the property in the correct way to get the maximum results. And I think it takes some skill, it takes some vision, but this is I'm working on my second project now, and we're going into our third, and I'm learning things all the time, like, oh man, I can do this better if I do this. And so there's a lot of like, I did really well on that first project, being very, very inexperienced. Like, the trees from the road work were just pushed to the side. I mean, nothing was really like done with pristine, but still, you know what I mean? We had success. So to clean it up a little bit more, it adds value. Every little thing that you do adds value to the land, and people see that and they're willing to invest. So my analogy that I think works the best is it's like a piece of pizza. You know what I mean? You have a full pizza that you can buy from the grocery store, right? Or from the pizza place, and maybe, what does that cost? $5-10, right? But we've all been at fundraisers, where they'll sell slices of pizza for three, $2-3, and that's where people are willing to pay the premium. You put it on a plate, you package it the right way, and now, I don't need a whole pizza. I just need a slice or two. And that's kind of the concept. People are willing to pay a little bit more for a slice or two. In actuality, that slice or two sometimes can cost almost as much as the whole pizza, you know? And so that's kind of what you're working with. And you have to package it the right way, and it's good to have a variety, right? Like, if you have some pepperoni, some supreme, some cheese, if you can have some land with some ponds, some land with some views, and you provide that variety, and people appeal to different things, right? Like, man, I wanted a piece of property with a pond, and with one tract of land, you can provide all sorts of variety. So
Yeah, the the common thread that I'm seeing amongst successful land developers is the creativity and the vision. So not too many people, the normal person, the normal retail buyer, the normal, even some real estate investors have have a challenge seeing the potential of a land and a location. But the successful developer can see that vision, the ultimate vision. So let's talk about who are the people that are moving, or who are the people that are buying these tracts in Oklahoma?
yeah, it's funny because it's kind of a mixed bag. You have some local people, right, that are like, hey, I want to get out a little ways and get a piece. But man, the majority, I would say probably 70 to 90. That's my professional calculation. 70 to 90% of the people, they're coming from the big city. They're coming from Dallas. They're coming from Houston. They're coming from California. All of the pressure around the country, it's driving people that have a desire to kind of get away from the city. it's driving them to really the heartland of Oklahoma and Arkansas. From what I see, it's like this trend to kind of go towards the national forest. And so like I was in the abstract office. The abstract office is where they handle the titles and all the closing basically for land. And I was putting on down an earnest money check for a new property that we're under contract with in Oklahoma. And she was saying, yeah, we're getting people from Hawaii, from UK, from California, from
Wow.
Texas. She's like all the time. She's like they're coming in, and she's like, we just can't, we're just so busy with people buying
Wow.
these small acreages. And another thing, I had an electrical guy come out to look at a property to look at running some electrical lines, and he was like, yeah, we're inundated all day long with people from California, Texas, like wanting to bring electrical to their small tracts that they just bought. And so it tells me that, even though, it may feel, oh, things are unstable in the economy, what that instability is doing is it's driving people to want to get out of the city. And so that's why land is such a good investment right
I think yesterday, we're working on a deal together, but I asked you a simple question, Tom. What are the property taxes for, a large tract, almost 100 acres of real estate, rural land out there in Oklahoma? And you responded back, what, $100? That
now. Yeah,
blows
it's
that blows my mind.
yeah. So because we're used to living in Texas. So in Texas, they don't have employee tax. So they get a lot of their property tax, is what funds the state of Texas. And property taxes are really, really high. If you have a house or land in Texas, you're paying through the roof, especially if you don't have an agricultural exemption. But in states like Oklahoma and Arkansas, which is primarily my target for land right now, is Oklahoma and Arkansas. Uh, since they have an income tax for the state, the land tax is a lot lower. So
Yeah, that
so
that's
yeah,
a huge point for investors to pay attention to the tax rates of the land taxes. Um, it's for me as an investor, it's really I love Texas, and we we grew up in Texas together, and I love Texas, but as an investor, it's very difficult to make the decision to invest in Texas because the property taxes are through the roof. Um, in a small or a single family neighborhood there in Richardson, where we live together, I think our small, 0.2 acre piece of property taxes was, $10,000 to $12,000 a year on a small
wow,
piece. So yeah, that's one benefit. That's um an absolutely critical aspect of
yeah,
a benefit of investing into Oklahoma, Arkansas area, of buying 100 acres of land and only spending $100 a year on property taxes. That's incredible. Another thing that looking into land in that part of looking into land as an investment, as an asset class of commercial real estate, is also when we buy the land, we usually do it with all cash, and we don't have a note to pay a third party bank as well. So our interest, we don't have to pay interest because we're buying all cash, and we don't have to pay property taxes. There's no people, we're not renting out space to any tenants,
right.
either way. So our expenses, and we don't have utilities, so basically our cash flow is we don't have any expenses. So there's multiple benefits of investing like you're doing there in Arkansas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and the one thing that I like about land, and we've talked about this, as opposed to other real estate options, you know, uh, I love people, but if you leave people involved in your business scenario too long, they create problems, right? So if you've had a lot of rental problems, or rental people, tenants, and you know that, like, what happens? They're calling you because they have this go wrong or this go wrong or that go wrong, or they don't pay their rent. You have to kick them out. With land, you buy the land, you fix it up, you sell the land, and there's not, they're not involved in the decision making a lot as far as like what you're doing. They're just kind of buying it as is, and then when they buy it, they take it, and that's theirs to deal with. And so yeah, so it takes away, you know, 99.999% of customer service, which can be
Yeah,
a huge time crunch, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I got one more question for you on the properties. After you subdivide them and replat them, what's your strategy for value add? Are you bringing in roads? So I think you mentioned electricity. What else? What do you prepare anything for the buyer? Maybe putting a building or a house on there? Or I guess do you clear trees? I guess what's your scope of your work that you like doing?
Yeah, so right now, kind of what I've done with the capital that I have is it's pretty much clearing some trees, thinning out views, bringing in some roads, obviously, so that they can access the tracts. Um, but we create kind of a pad site. It's not like an official level spec curb pad site, curb and gutter, but it's a pad site where someone can pull on and they can kind of envision, oh, I could build something here, or man, this is a great space, but I'd like to even go in a little bit deeper with my place. It just gives people a little bit of a vision for what they want to do, and I've found that one, there's a lot of value in just subdividing. Just the fact that you get the plat and you subdivide it, there's a lot of value that brings. You can double or triple that by bringing in utilities and roads, and by clearing and thinning the trees, which it takes some managing of log crews and dirt work guys, which there's a mixed bag there. But yeah, when it all comes together, that value is there and people see it,
Excellent.
and they're willing to pay a premium for it. And if you have pictures and drone footage and videos and you can market it, there's nobody doing that. People right now are crazy about land. They're investing in it like crazy. They're buying it sight unseen. They're going online and they're looking for tracts. They're buying them and they're trying to resell them, just like in the flip it in 30 days and all this stuff. The fact that we're willing to put boots on the ground, we're willing to actually add more value. It makes our product at the end of the day a lot more beneficial, and really a lot more more integrity filled, right? We're actually doing something. We're providing value.
Yep, excellent. So, going back to how we started, you and I have been close friends, probably best friends for, 20, 27 years now, I guess. So we have been on this journey of living in the city for the majority of our life. And Dallas is one of the largest cities in the country, the DFW area. So I guess what are some of your biggest takeaways of moving out of the city? So now you've been living in your 55 acres now for what, 7 years? How 7 years now?
About 4 years, four and a
Four,
half years.
4
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of your biggest surprises, or I guess what are your thoughts from going the city to the rural life?
Like, you don't want to go back to the city.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to go to a restaurant in the city sometimes, but like, but yeah, whenever you go to the city, you're like, oh man, there's traffic, there's people, there's congestion.
But yeah, there's the
It's just,
people. I mean, your personality is you're very people person. So that's surprising that you would say that. Have a sanguine temperament, and
it's funny, in the past 4.5 years, if you ask my wife, she'll say, man, you've turned it into a little bit more of a recluse. So, but no, people are great. I love people, but man, to be able to just step outside, experience the fresh air, look up at a mountain, take a walk with your family, like, you know what I mean, just be out there, like, have an actual space for your kids to run around. I mean, my kids, there's a creek running through the back mountain there. they go back there, man. They're playing in the creek. They're having fun. I mean, it's just a really cool way, I think, to experience like what we have and to get away. And if you can, I mean, obviously there's people that live in the city and they're like, man, I could never do that. But you know what? You might be able to get a couple acres, put a cabin on it, and come out and visit. You know what I mean? Come to get away from the city every now and then. And so
Excellent.
that's what it provides. It provides a space like that. So
Excellent. So do you have any last words or suggestions or advice for real estate investors that may be listening to the show that may be thinking about getting into land development and rural subdividing?
yeah, I would say that in the days we live in, everything is electronic, right? Electronic money, electronic transaction, electronic investing, and uh, there's a lot of investments out there where I think people, maybe they make a lot of money and then they feel like, oh, this is the way to do it. The thing that I like about land investing is it's a tangible asset. It's something that you can go out and visit. It's something that you can touch. You can walk on, and it's not going to go away. And so I think that in the long run, I mean, you look at the history of humankind. You look at it throughout the history. It's like it's always been land ownership that really is a key principle in driving any economy. And so like I think that investing in land, investing in development is a sound investment. Obviously, no one can fend off the apocalypse, right? But but we're here for this time, and we're here to provide for our families, and this is a way to see some real good gains. So
Excellent. Excellent. So you're on your 55 acres now. You're working on your 30-acre project. Just got under contract on almost a 100-acre deal. So I guess what are some of your goals? Or I guess where do you see yourself in a couple years? What's next? What would you like to be working on?
yeah, there are some different markets around, but ironically, when I think about real opportunities, like I know that in our church, for example, there's a lot of families that are wanting to move towards like a traditional Catholic community, and so they're looking, and a lot of these people are kind of like, I'd like a couple acres, I'd like 3 or 4 acres. I mean, we both have talked to families recently about this. And so I think one of the next steps that I'd like to do is see about finding some of those communities, finding a piece of land close to there, and then providing an opportunity for those families to be able
Excellent.
to get something. And I feel like that would kind of tie in our original goal of getting people into prayer and really putting them in a place. Because I know right now, like our family is on 55 acres and it's really nice, but we're really far away. We drive 2 hours every week to get to church, and that's hard. That's 2 hours there, 2 hours back.
Yeah.
So
Excellent. All right. So where can the listeners get in contact with you? Where can they find you if you want to share your email address or where can they find you?
yeah. So my email address is tglandsolutions@gmail.com. tglandsolutions. And yeah, I don't this is like my first digital thing that I've done in a really long time. I've been out in the country for 4 years, and I'm just coming out of hiding now, Jeremy. So
Yeah, this is great. I'm glad you wanted to do the podcast, and there's a lot of listeners that will really get inspired by hearing your story. And you've inspired me. You shocked me this summer whenever you said, "Hey, we look at these projects that I've done, and this is what I want to do." And I said, "Yeah, this is really fun." So, man, so praise God. So nice having you on this podcast, and we got to keep doing these podcasts for sure.
sounds good, man.
That is a wrap for the latest episode of the Wealth Building Strategies podcast.